The RCWR Show with Lee Sanders is intended for a mature audience only. The following is an Infinity One Productions presentation, keeping it honest, insightful, and interactive. Covering the latest in wrestling and beyond since 2011. You're listening to the RCWR Show. Now, your host, live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., Lee Sanders.
Hey, what is going on, good kind people? Lee Sanders here of the RCWR Show, covering all things wrestling, entertainment, and beyond since 2011. Here we are. I told you guys we were giving you guys a double dose tonight for Thursday, May 6th, 2021. We already put out a show earlier tonight, a couple of hours ago, so feel free to check it out after you get done with this. I'm giving you guys my instant reactions to the Dark Side of the Ring season 3 premiere on the life of Brian Pillman. I gotta tell you, and I want to hear from you guys for the next little bit that I'm gonna be live on the air. I definitely want to hear from you guys that had saw this season premiere. So sound off. We're streaming on multiple outlets right now. Definitely would love to hear from you. We'll definitely get to your comments as they come in, and maybe any questions you might have related to this particular season premiere that we saw, or maybe just in regards to future installments of Dark Side of the Ring. But definitely, this is the place. You wired up. You definitely want to talk about the season 3 premiere. You definitely came to the right place here. I gotta tell you, this was beautifully well produced. I gotta say, as far as season premieres. Now, look, I thought what they had did with the 2-part Chris Benoit story from last season, I thought that was very, very strong. But man, maybe because of just the number of people that the Dark Side crew was ultimately able to get access to, in regards to talking about Brian and really doing a phenomenal job and talking with those that were directly connected to Brian Pillman. I don't know. I mean, to each its own, but for me, I just kind of felt this was much stronger on so many levels compared to the Chris Benoit season premiere. But man, I tell you what, I don't know if you guys are kind of like this in regards to how my mindset is, especially if you're an older wrestling fan. But for me, as I was watching this special, I couldn't help but say, yeah, that did happen, didn't it? As there were certain things either, I blocked out of my mind unintentionally, or it was a case of, okay, it's been so many years that's gone by and I didn't even, I don't know, once in a blue moon, I kind of find myself to be in that position. And tonight was definitely one of those nights where other times, something I haven't thought about for years, a decade or two, all of a sudden, I'm not doing anything particularly special. All of a sudden, randomly, something will just pop in my head and it's, oh yeah, I remember that. And watching this special tonight, I found myself doing that quite a bit. Gotta tell you, it was definitely pretty somber, pretty emotional, just a wide range of emotions. I personally felt, as I'm sure a lot of viewers have felt, going into this episode, just going with the emotions and everything. And for me, wide range. I was very reflective on the life and career of Brian Pillman, yet at the same time I was angry. Some parts of this documentary, as I was watching it, I was quite sad. I was quite taken back. I mean, it really connected to me and really made me kind of think about my own childhood to a certain degree. And I'm nowhere comparing with, Brian Pillman Jr. and the kids. I'm not comparing, but, it's just, everybody has their own trials and tribulations that they go through, right? everybody has their own struggles that they go through, and as you're watching this, you're just kind of reminded of some of those trials and tribulations maybe you have faced or and conquered, or that you're going through right now, and you're trying to figure out ways of persevering, of overcoming such great adversity and all that. And one thing that really, really stood out in my mind was just all of the adversity that Brian Pillman had to overcome to cement his place as a bona fide megastar in the world of pro wrestling. But just when it seemed that he was starting to reach that first tier hurdle, then you just got all this unfortunate ball of man, just what fucked up luck. And you're just left just what might have been, and everything. They had a really, really great cast of folks on this episode. I mean, it was great. Of course, we had good old JR, Jim Ross. We also had Stone Cold Steve Austin. So this was officially Stone Cold Steve Austin's first, wow, since Dark Side of the Ring has been in existence. Here we are. We get to see him in the flesh and everything, commenting and all that. I think that's pretty fucking badass. We also had Brian Pillman Jr. Many of you know who that is. Melanie Pillman, who is the widow of Brian Pillman. Eric Bischoff, Jim Cornette. Love seeing Jim Cornette. Dave Meltzer. Linda Pillman, who was the older sister of Brian Pillman. Kim Wood, and I gotta tell you, as far as like who was the MVPs for this episode, who was really hooking you in from that viewing standpoint, and you were just hanging off of his words, and he was delivering the most memorable lines, I gotta give it up to Kim Wood, who was a former NFL strength coach for Brian Pillman when ultimately Brian made the transition into NFL football. Remember, he had played for the Cincinnati Bengals for a hot minute. Things didn't work out. And then from there, he had tried to do football out in, what was it? Oh, God, I think he did some Canada football for a little bit. I think it was out in Calgary. And as we all know, that didn't last that long. And from the rest, as they say, is pretty much history as far as getting into the world of pro wrestling and everything. But Kim Wood was the MVP of the night for Dark Side of the Ring. He had the most memorable lines. Meanwhile, when you go to Melanie, I gotta say, when you go to Melanie, man, 1 minute you're kind of on that side where you're like, it sucks what's going on with this poor widow, these kids that's left behind. And then you start feeling yourself get angry and everything. But then towards the end of the episode, you're kind of like, well, you know what? If he's cool with it, I guess I'm cool with it. It's kind of, trust me, we'll get to it. It ain't long-winded. Trust me, it ain't long-winded. But that was good. Yeah, Kim Wood, he definitely was the MVP there. I'm trying to figure out if there's anybody else in there that maybe I'm missing. I think that pretty much was everybody, because I pretty much was jotting down my notes as we went along and everything. And you talk about the adversity that Brian Pillman had to overcome. There's a few things that come into mind when I just think about the adversities he overcame in order to try to reach some type of pinnacle in the world of pro wrestling. You look at the numerous surgeries that he had on his throat, all because he was dealing with these polyps that would be growing on his throat and everything. And according to his older sister, he must have had like 40 surgeries or something like that. I mean, fucking insane. I mean, she lost count, but she knows for a fact it was definitely like 40 and up. So that's why he had the whole raspy voice and all of that. So, adversity number one, you're going, wow, this guy had to overcome all of these surgeries. Because, I mean, just one wrong move and I mean, heaven forbid, it's a situation where, because those vocal cords can be sensitive. When you start tweaking around in the throat and everything, just one thing, one slip up, and man, that could be a person's entire voice box that they can't use for the rest of their life. You feel where I'm coming from? So going through weeks each time that he got these surgeries, just think about that for a second. Just imagine going through all of those surgeries, and each time you're going through those surgeries, you're not able to speak for 2 to 3 weeks. Ooh, I mean, that is just insane. When you hear about that, but somehow he was able to overcome that and everything, and it's almost as if he had turned that negative into a positive and everything. For most people, they would probably be pretty shy. They probably would really keep to themselves, things of that nature. It's just really early on made Brian Pillman 2 cents from a distance. It just kind of seemed as though it really made him really try to grab life by the horns and not take things for granted, and not take things for granted, and really try to jump out there, live life to the fullest and all that. So again, after the whole football thing went down, going into Canada there, hooking up with the Hart Foundation family, and getting in his training and everything. And I'm just picturing the legendary man himself, Stu Hart, seen him many times over the years, and he's making grown ass men cry and everything. Yeah, I'm gonna put my hand around here. Look that stuff up online if you guys have never seen some of that footage from Stu Hart training some of these kids in the dungeon, man. It's legendary stuff, especially when you're just able to hear about some of these guys that actually were participants. They were students at that Hart dungeon, and just hearing them share some of those stories. Good freaking stuff. So you hear about that adversity. But then the second adversity that you think about that Brian Pillman overcame is how he had to overcome that stigma of, well, a guy of your size, your stature, yeah, you can only do but so much in the world of wrestling, right? I mean, really take a step and think about that. Here's this guy who's 6 feet tall, and look, for some people, hey, 6 feet tall, that's decent height. That's okay height. But in the world of pro wrestling, especially when you look at that particular period he was coming up and everything, this was still all about the era of the big men. Yeah, we were kind of getting out of that cartoon character phase there, but this was still all about the big guys. This was still about your Macho Mans, your Hogans, and all of that good stuff. That's running around and everything. So a little bit of a height disadvantage was on his side and everything, but that did not stop him whatsoever from trying to pursue a career in the world of pro wrestling. And I tell you, it was great to have Steve Austin there, really connecting the dots of those early years when it came to the Hollywood Blondes in WCW. And I can tell you just from real time, because I am a much, not too old, but I am an older guy, older wrestling fan. I can remember many times when I was checking out WCW, and I'm not saying this just to be saying it, but I legit was a fan of the Hollywood Blondes. I thought those guys, because I was always into the heels growing up as a fan. I was leaning always more towards the heels. Very rare would I root a baby face on. Yeah, I went through that period like everybody else, the Hulkamania period and everything. But for me, I wasn't really a diehard Hulk Hogan fan. For me, I would always kind of, give me the more interesting kind of, give me that guy. So for me, the Roddy Pipers, the Jake the Snake Roberts, the Papa Shangos, the Undertakers, Surfboard Sting. I gravitated to guys like that. Kamala, I gravitated towards guys like that. Yokozuna, those were my cup of tea and everything. So Hollywood Blondes back in the day, that was right up my fucking alley. I saw a really, really great tag team that had excellent chemistry, great showmanship. I didn't overthink wrestling kind of like I do once in a while nowadays. As far as what does the future hold? Could they maybe? I wasn't that kind of a fan way back in the day. However, when I did look at a team like the Hollywood Blondes and how I, pretty much dug them and everything, all I knew was they were cool. And if you asked me back then why I thought they were cool, for me, it just kind of came off as if, hey, man, these are two best buddies that's just going in there and they're having a damn good fucking time. And you know what? I can kind of relate to that because who doesn't have that one friend you're always acting up with and you can do a whole bunch of crazy shit with and everything, right? So, that tag team, when you go back and you really think about it, your history analytics and everything, it really seemed like they were going places in WCW. It really seemed like they were stringing shit together. And, you stop and think about it. Steve Austin was doing his thing as a solo act and everything. And, just when it seemed like he was getting ready to go to that next level in WCW, he gets derailed and he gets paired up with Brian Pillman. And at that point, all right, let's make the most out of whatever this is. And just when it seemed like they were finally starting to string things together, all of a sudden, shit gets ice cold. It pretty much gets stopped, dead in its tracks. And leave it to Jim Cornette, who was there in WCW at the time, to say, it's kind of unfortunate that those guys got the blame for a poor rating, because of, this, and that. Many episodes of WCW back in the day, as Jim Cornette had pointed out, poor low-ass ratings. And it was not the fault of Steve Austin and Brian Pillman whatsoever. All right, so think about that for a second. We just told you about the first adversity, the first hill that Brian Pillman had to climb. Now you got this situation where, okay, now you're in a position where, okay, obviously the football and all that didn't work out because of injury. What's the next best thing? You get involved in wrestling. You're doing pretty good. You're tearing it up in Stampede and everything. You eventually make your way to WCW, but now you've pretty much kind of reached that ceiling, and that you're capable of more than that ceiling. You can go beyond that, but it's all about changing the perception. It's all about changing the minds of those around you to help them see what it is you're talking about. How are you going to get them to understand the point that you're making? How can you help them see the vision that, you're talking about and everything? And this is where the genius of Brian Pillman really comes into play. I do see what you guys are saying in the chat, so please, whatever you thought about tonight's Dark Side of the Ring episode and you saw it, keep the comments going. I'll definitely read you all's interactions. Of course, as we're, I'm still doing my review for this, I'll definitely, where I can, I'll jump in and show you some love and all that. But, now it's all about reinventing the wheel here that we find ourselves with Brian Pillman, and thus that loose cannon. It's pretty much born. It's born way before WWF and all that. I mean, he's pretty much working on this while he's in WCW and everything. And the way he went about reinventing himself, I gotta tell you, just to increase his stock, just to increase, his value, to try to get more out of his wrestling career and to try to take it to that next level and everything. Try to have, look back on those days in WCW. Look at how many times we had different managements, different bookers, and all kinds of other silliness that was going on right there. Somebody was looking really, really promising. You thought they were going places. Next thing you know, ice cold stop, dead in his tracks because some new bookers or whatever came in and all that. So, yeah, I can only imagine how it was for some of those wrestlers, Steve Austin included. I can only imagine how it was for some of those wrestlers that were going through what they were going through and everything. You know what I'm saying? Um, Crazy. Just fucking crazy. Just fucking crazy. Osgard, I appreciate I appreciate that. Nah, man, I have not lived in my mother's basement. God, I have not lived in my mother's basement and man, what is it now? Well, I'm 40 now. Last time I lived with my mama, I was 19 going on 20 and I was in my I was getting ready to go into my first year in college. And yeah, yeah. Oh man. But you know what? With this pandemic, you know what? I can't knock that, brother. I can't knock that. Anybody that's falling on hard times and they can't they can't provide for themselves, their family, you gotta do what you gotta do. I know for a lot of people, no bullshit, a lot of people, that ain't too bad right about now. Be able to live somewhere maybe rent free, especially if you lost your job because of the pandemic. Psh, nah, man. Nah. I can't hate. I can't hate. I can't hate. But yeah, so just seeing him basically reinvent the wheel and rededicate himself, try to be refocused, try to rebuild, rebrand himself, and just the little antics that he would do down there in WCW and all that. I thought some of the stuff that they had highlighted definitely, especially the first thing I think of when it comes to loose cannon Brian Pillman, one of the first memories I have in my head is definitely when he fucking hit Pater. Was when he was trolling the late Bobby Heenan. When he did that, I'm like, yep. Now back then, seeing it in real time, because I used to watch a lot of the WCW pay-per-views, all the shows and all that. Like, I remember when I saw it in real time, I remember going, oh man, Heenan's pissed. I'm like, well, damn, what happened? Why is he so pissed at him? Like, what the hell? He didn't learn until, a couple of years later. Oh, that's what went down. Okay, that's what had went down. Okay, I see what it is. So just the way he went about, redesigning himself and everything, creating this character that definitely, when you go back and you look at the history of pro wrestling and you think about the stamp that Brian Pillman made and everything on the industry, I know a lot of people want to go with the whole curtain call and, and all that other shit, but what Brian Pillman was fucking doing by peeling back the curtain and all that, right? Fucking with Bobby Heenan, having that match with Kevin Sullivan, who was the booker at WCW at that point, saying the shit that he was saying to him post-match and everything. All right, Booker, man. Trolling him and all that. I mean, just the way he was just bending the lines, blurring them there. Okay, what's going on here? Is this real or what's going on here? Brilliant. Fucking brilliant what was going on. Fucking brilliant what was going on there. Look, I know that the Dark Side of the Ring people, they had put up the first episode on social media. I don't know if they're gonna put up the entire, because this is pretty much broken down in two parts. So I don't know if they're gonna put up the second part of it online. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of did something a little bit similar to what they did with the Chris Benoit joint. They just pretty much, if I remember it right, I think they had put up the first joint, and then maybe like a week later, they put up the second joint or whatever. But for those of you that don't have access to Vice TV, you want to do like me. You want to go on ahead. If you got $20 you can spare, you want to either get yourself Philo TV or you want to get yourself Sling TV. And pretty much that's how you'll be able to watch Vice if you don't already have it from your respective cable or satellite provider. That's pretty much the workaround. I had to go with Philo. I wasn't trying to break the bank And for me, I've been playing around with Philo for a couple of weeks now. Well, one of my listeners and followers on social media actually had recommended it to me when I was telling her, "Oh man, I'm not going to be able to watch the WWE A&E biographies," and she was like, "Just check out Philo." She's like, "It's $20, great quality, no problem. Streaming is awesome. Stream it on all your devices. You ain't got to remember no password or nothing. It just needs your phone number." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And the rest is history. So hopefully that information helps you out, and to everybody else that was asking about how can I watch this. Now you know. But seeing Brian Pillman overcome all of those obstacles, and just for me, the line of the entire episode, I gotta give it up to my man Kim Wood when he was asked for his thoughts on Vince McMahon. And I'm telling you, I fucking lost it. I lost my fucking shit. He said, "What do I think about what do I think about Vince McMahon? What do I think about Vince? Like a whore. You fuck him." That's what I think of Vince McMahon, because Kim was basically trying to put Brian in a position where, look, man, get in there, make the most money that you can for yourself, for your family, be financially comfortable, fucking, whoever's gonna fucking acquire your services, whoever is the most hungriest, right? Like, this is your price. And you kind of understood a lot more of what was going on there once Brian started getting this whole blueprint of the loose cannon together and everything. He was looking for, if I understand that right, I'll have to rely on you guys, but if I remember it right, he was looking for like 400K as far as staying in WCW, but Bischoff was only trying to do like about 225K or whatever. And freaking, hey, that's good money even for back then. That's pretty good money, but Brian kind of felt like he should be getting a bit more. And when he was talking with Kim about it and everything, it was no, go in there, really get your money's worth, because what you got going on right here, right? And I thought it was interesting how, wow, is the first thing that comes to my mind. Just wow. I find it interesting that Eric Bischoff lets Brian Pillman out of his WCW contract so that Brian could, at least the way it was spun, Brian wanted it to be a legit release from WCW. He wanted to really bend the thread of reality. He really wanted to work people. And so in order to really accomplish this, he had to officially be let go from WCW. And as the legend has it, Eric Bischoff agreed to this. Now, again, we got Eric Bischoff on the same episode. So yet Eric Bischoff is saying, no. I know how that sounds. No, I encouraged Brian to go out there. If WWF is willing to pay him more money, then go ahead, get that money, prove himself, and then come back to WCW at a later date, and he will give him that money that Brian is looking for and then some, right? So if you ask me which side am I on as far as did Bischoff get played, or was Bischoff really, nah, man, go out there, go get that money. Bischoff seems, I've listened to his show off and on over the years. He seems pretty transparent. He seems pretty honest. I don't really pick up, I either get two things from Eric Bischoff. I either get, well, I can't really remember, so I can't really tell you. Or we get the Bischoff that, yeah, you know what? That probably really wasn't a good idea at the time. Looking back on it now, blah, 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 blah. No, that was the right decision to make, and here's why. He's either going to come at you from one of those angles. In this particular case, I legit believe that he most likely said to Brian, I'm sorry. I know this is what you want, but this is what I can offer you. Go out there and, if you can get that, go get that, right? And so eventually, as we all know, especially those of us that watch this episode, Brian Pillman was eventually able to get the money that he wanted and then some. I mean, he gets a 3-year guaranteed contract with WWF. You're going, okay, all right, we're good. And then that fucking automobile accident. That goddamn automobile accident that pretty much changed his life. Tore it up upside down. All that other shit. Some of this stuff that I was checking out tonight, some stuff I remembered, other stuff, it had been so many years since I had looked up the stories on it, and then some things like I never even knew about. For example, I did not know that in regards to that automobile accident, the amount of surgeries that he had on his face. Did y'all catch that watched it? This guy had like 6 to 7 different doctors that were working on his face. One doctor would basically maybe work on the forehead. Another one would maybe work on the cheeks. One would work on the nose, the lips, the jaw, and all of that. So all of that is going on with his face. By the way, he gets screws put in his face. And his leg is totally fucked. That leg has rods. Just hold it up. They're talking about fusing that leg so that they could try to save it, but they fuse it. That's definitely it for him as far as running. That's definitely it for his wrestling career. And he wasn't really trying to have any of that going on. Now just think about that for a second. You finally reach that tier 1 pinnacle of your wrestling career. You got the contract. You got the big money contract that you've been looking for. You're set. Your family is good. And this accident happens. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to be transparent with that new employer? Let them know what's going on? Hope that they're going to be able to work with you? Or do you maybe sit on it, cover it up, do whatever you got to do because you want all of that money that's coming in? You don't want no loophole that can kind of, maybe right here and now that I've posed that question, some people, oh, well, it's easy. I would just do. Truth is, you really don't know how you would operate until you're actually in that situation. There's no right or wrong answer. You just don't know until, that's the correct answer, really, if you think about it. You really don't know. You have an idea, but you really don't know until you're in that position. And he tried to sit on that as best as humanly possible. And it's understandable because if he would have came clean about it, that probably would have been it, right? I mean, you would think that probably would have been it for him. Can't wrestle anywhere because something like that, you go through that type of an accident, and yeah, nah, you're done. You're done. So the fact that he masked that for what it was worth, and the levels of which he masked that injury, I mean, the IV stuff, disconnecting himself from his IV, go do what he needs to do for WWF, then head on back, wherever, hook himself up to his IV and all that, just, So he's overcome that adversity, but with a catch. Because by trying to be a strong soldier and soldier on, he did further damage to his body. Right down to the point he got himself, addicted to the painkillers, the muscle relaxants and everything, and understandable, but what he really needed was just time away from the industry and really fucking heal up properly. And it just never freaking happened. I actually remember that period there in WWF where he was doing color commentating work and everything. And I just remember, because I was a big fan of Brian Pillman back in the day, and I just remember looking at him at times. And even back then, even though I was, a teenager, I just remember saying, man, he looks miserable back there. He looks like he doesn't really want to do that. He came off very, very, I'm so better than this shit. That's honestly how he came off, and I don't mean that in a douchebag way. Just as a teen looking at that shit back then, that's just honestly the vibe that I have felt. So it kind of felt like validation, seeing that, because you got JR in there saying, hey, I try to tell him how he could really, find a new career doing the color commentating, doesn't have to worry about the in-ring stuff. He would have a ball doing this. He wasn't trying to hear it. He wanted to get back in that ring. So you just think about all of those adversities there. You think about that last one. You think about that last one. Okay, yeah, you overcame your accident. But it came at a price, because even though you soldiered on, you really should have left the business and healed up, but you didn't. And you talk about just a sad downward spiral, out of control and everything. Very unfortunate, his passing. I didn't know the exact details about his passing. To know that he pretty much passed away by himself in his hotel. What a fucked up way to go out. I mean, seriously. And then, of course, somebody that young passing away at the age of, what was it, like 35? Yeah, like 35 or 36, for somebody to pass away so young. Of course, back then, and just how pro wrestling as a whole was frowned upon back then. Oh, you could forget about it. Everybody was going to be so quick. Roids. It was the roids. It was either roids or it was cocaine. That was just the stigma. That's how it was back then. I'm telling you, anybody that wasn't born in the 90s, I'm telling you, that's how it was. I know wrestling is so well liked now. It's so well received and everything now, but back then it was just the stigma that was around pro wrestling back then. It's just a bunch of ignorant, low intellect mofos that's just watching it. That hillbilly TV crap. I'm not bullshitting. I'm not legit. As a veteran wrestling fan like myself that's been watching it for some decades, they'll tell you that as far as pro wrestling, how it was back then, and for many decades, that's how it pretty much was looked upon by corporate America and all that shit, So, very, very tragic. We all, as human beings, we all have flaws, right? Nobody's perfect. Nobody is perfect. For Brian Pillman, one of his flaws, he loved the ladies. So let's see if we got this straight. 6 kids, right? He's got 6 kids. And what is it? Like, with 3 different women? I think I'm remembering it right. We had Rochelle. We had Melanie. We had the one woman that he had an affair with. And a child spawned as a result of that. That baby mama didn't have the heart at the time to tell Brian Pillman, hey, I'm pregnant, child is yours. She understood where he was exactly, who he kind of wanted to be with, and so he tried to, but she got to a point where it was, now, you know what, he needs to know about this child and everything. So, he kind of had that whole Captain James T. Kirk thing going on. You know how Kirk loved them women back in the day on Star Trek? He didn't care if it was brown, if it was green, purple, 4 arms, pretty face and hair and nice little, cute little body. He was there. He was fucking there. You were just really left shaking your head, though. And your heart really went out for Rochelle. because Rochelle really, I mean, his first baby mama, he the shit he put her through, man, that just wasn't cool. I know many other people are gonna probably tiptoe around that. Me personally, loyalty is very, very important to me. It's very, very important to me. And it's like, once you burn me once, I'm not giving you a second opportunity to burn me again. I totally fucking, you don't exist in my book. Once I'm burned that one time, you know, heaven forbid, I fucked with you on a personal level or on a professional level. Once I feel as though I was burned, never a second time. So seeing that shit that Brian had put Rochelle through, I mean, particularly, I mean, you would think about this for those of you that saw the episode. You would think that after the whole ordeal where she got stabbed multiple times by the who was it, by the groundskeeper or something like that of the property or whatever, you would think that after that shit happened, and I mean, this motherfucker stabbed her repeatedly, got her in the face pretty good and everything, you would think that a tragedy like that in some form would maybe bring a couple even more closer together. And a person would maybe say, man, maybe this is a sign that I should stop my cheating ways. And you would just, for that whatever respected reason, that didn't happen. That did not happen with Brian Pillman. He loved the ladies. And ultimately everything that had went down there, him leading up to Melanie, and shortly after getting with her, deciding, okay, you know what? I want to be done with Rochelle. I want to be with Melanie, marrying her a couple of months later. So, I mean, just really stop and think about that, because I don't really think that was really driven home with regards to Rochelle there. Because, for her, okay, cheating husband, no matter what she's doing, she can't seem to keep this man satisfied. She can't seem to keep him exclusive, monogamous. And then you have this ordeal that goes down where she's viciously attacked by somebody, right? Now, he's continuing to do the cheating and the sleeping around and all that. So not only does he cheat with Melanie, but decides, yeah, Rochelle, yeah, I'm done with you after everything I know, but I'm done with you. I'm going to go over here. You're still trying to maintain that healthy relationship with your baby mama, because there's a kid involved. So you're trying to maintain, and I mean, just all the bullshit that went through. That Melanie chick, man, she really came off as a piece of work back in her day. And I want to make sure I'm choosing my words carefully. Trust me, I'm not biting my tongue. I'm giving it to you raw. But she was a real piece of work back in the day. I give a person a lot of props when they admit their mistakes. So, it was great seeing a reflective Melanie that basically, I didn't handle this differently. I wish I could have done this differently. I wish but particularly just seeing what all led up to Rochelle taking her own life. All this shit that's happened to her, everything, you could almost say certain things were just being taken away from her little by little. Ultimately, the child that her and Brian have together, and they're fighting over custody. Which child was that, by the way? Was that Brittany that they had in the custody battle there? I mean, just having that ugly custody battle that was going on. I don't know what it's like to be involved in a custody battle. Long before I met my woman, who I'm going to be getting married to next month, I dated a couple of women that, had a couple of baby daddies, and, luckily it was peaceful as far as custody visits and, sharing the responsibilities and all that. Most households, it's not as fortunate. It's pretty It's pretty ugly. So to just hear what was going on with those kids, especially Brian Pillman Jr., once he got into the picture and everything, my heart just ached for that man, that young man. To hear that his new stepdad, once Brian Pillman passed, to hear that the stepdad was not only abusive to Melanie, but also abusive to him and his siblings, but would also have these dogs on standby, trained in such a way where they would bark at these kids. They would bite these kids on sight. I mean, my mind is just, and I like how they gave us that little caption of how the stepdad wasn't available to offer a comment. Like, basically, they reached out to him, the producers, but he didn't reach back out to them. Like, yeah, you probably don't want to respond. You probably don't. Embarrassment, if you know a thing or two of how social media is today and everything, yeah, you probably don't want to comment on something like that. You probably don't. So I mean, let's not beat around the bush. When you're looking at this episode, when I say you're going through wide range of emotions, I'll be honest, I definitely had looked at Brian Pillman and I kind of, some of those parts, and I said, not good, not good, Probably one other biggest takeaway I have from this episode, totally blanked out about this, but once I saw it, I was reminded, and I somehow tapped into the raw emotion I had when I was that teenager in real time seeing it play out live on television. And that was the Raw after that Bad Blood pay-per-view, where Vince McMahon on that Raw, officially made the announcement about Brian Pillman being dead and everything. And that goddamn via satellite interview with Melanie. And, to go to Melanie, and Melanie is saying, I told Vince before we did it, hey, whatever you do, don't ask me about if there was any drugs. Don't ask me this. Don't ask me that. Let's wait until the toxicology report, the certificate of, cause of death. Let's wait for that to officially come out and everything. Don't ask me any of that stuff. And Vince, yeah, no, of course. And for him to basically go there on live fucking television, I agree with every single thing that Jim Cornette has said, but as far as just from being that fan, seeing that shit play out in real time, I can't tell you how upset me and my friends were. And at this point, it's not like we're young teens. I mean, around this point, we all are like 15, 16, 17 around this time. So we got a good idea about right and wrong, and yeah, that don't look good, dog. And I remember when we were watching this in real time, we all just kind of shook our heads and we're like, what the fuck are we watching here? It felt like we were watching a completely different show. When that particular interview segment came on, it felt like we were watching something from Phil Donahue or some shit. Wait, are we watching a wrestling show? Now look, obviously with the man passing and everything, you're expecting a nice little tribute show, people giving nice little, in memory speeches, some in-ring action. You're expecting all of these things going on. But when it got to that part where Vince was interviewing Melanie, I remember me and my friends, we just cringed. We put our heads down and we just were like, what the fuck are they doing? That was our question. We're like, what the fuck are they doing here? Why are we seeing this? Why is this on our TV? And it's like, hasn't this woman been put through enough? And by then, we had already experienced what was going on with the steroid trial and all of that little craziness and everything. And, when I look back on it now, having, reliving this again during tonight's episode, I just can't help but go, man, look, you want to help out the family, you want to set them up with royalties, I'm down with all of that. I'm down with all that. You want to help the family out, I'm down with all of that. But come on, man, do we really need to take this level of exploitation down this avenue? Do we really need to go down there? So, I mean, I remember as a teen, that left a bitter taste in my mouth. now that I'm a older cat, yeah, it's just kind of one of those fuck you Vince. Yeah, I said it. Fuck you, Vince. That's just where I am right now. Cause it's like, no. You know what I'm saying? I agree totally with what Jim Cornette said. Give her $100,000 to not be on the fucking show. Yeah, me personally, and this happened under my watch, under my promotion, I'm not gonna put the family on fucking TV. I'm gonna be like, look, I can read a statement or something that you want me to read on your behalf to the fans. I'll read it for you word for word. I ain't gonna ad-lib it. I'm not gonna improvise. You tell me what you want me to say to the fans word for word, and that's what I'll say on the air. Otherwise, y'all, we got you. Don't worry about nothing right now. One day at a time. But we got you. We're here for you. We're here for those kids. Don't worry. Y'all gonna be all right. And that's it. Now fucking put them on TV and do this whole stupid. So yeah, that was just, and I actually said out loud when all this was playing out tonight, very similar to when I was a teen. I was like, fuck you, Vince. Fuck you, Vince. Yeah. It was great seeing Brian Pillman Jr. and really tapping into him a lot more and everything. Man, he looks so much like his dad. It's so fucking eerie. He looks a lot like his dad. He does. Mannerisms. Sometimes the way he walks out to the ring. In some instances, when you're watching him wrestle and everything, you're just kind of, yeah, you can see it. You can see it and everything. It was great to hear that Brian Pillman's sister, his older sister, it was great to hear that she served as that. It was great to hear that she was that olive branch that essentially tried to keep all the kids together despite all of that dysfunction that was going on, especially with Melanie being such a bad parent at that particular time. And again, I got to give her props. It really seems as though she, in retrospect, she didn't make the best of decisions and, but I got to home in on Brittany. I think all of us need to home in on Brittany there. Brittany said something that was very, very key there. She said, look, Melanie gets all them royalty checks off of dad. We don't see zero. Or at least she doesn't see $0 of that. So, officially we kind of need that filtered a little bit more there. We got to unravel that a little bit more. So is this a case where basically Melanie is essentially been taking care of the kids that she had with Brian, and it's kind of like, fuck them other kids? Is that how she's basically been rolling, or what? I'm a little bit, I wish that would have been deciphered just a little bit more, because I'm still a little bit confused. If you guys are a little bit confused, let me know, or if you felt it was very clear to you what was going on with the royalties, sound off, let me know. But my God, Melanie looks so different. I mean, yeah, we're talking about what, 23 years ago? But like I had said to a few people in the Discord, I said, think about this for a second. We're talking about, 23 years ago, basically. Angela Bassett, J-Lo, Jada Pinkett Smith, Holly Berry. All these women still look the same. Jennifer Aniston still look the same. You still recognize them. That's the key point I want to make. Forget the whole still look the same. You still recognize them as soon as you see them. As soon as you see them. If you grew up on them, you recognize them as soon as you see them. They almost look like they really haven't aged. But man, when you look at Melanie and you just go, man, them drugs really did a serious number on her. You're just like, all you can do, you can just keep your fingers crossed and hope that she somehow fought these demons. But just kind of based off what young Brittany was saying there, ooh, it's obvious Brittany still holds a lot of resentment towards her stepmom. It's very obvious. She still holds serious animosity and all. I don't think that's ever ever. That's the thing, man. That's the thing. When it comes to raising kids and all that, especially if you do them wrong, you got to be careful because kids are very, very, what's the right word I'm looking for? Impressionable. There are things that they will remember for the rest of their lives that is essential to what makes their very core when they're an adult. So you got to be very, very careful. But man, you talk about some serious resentment there and everything. But yeah, man, lot of mixed emotions going into this episode. It was definitely obvious that all these years later, almost 25 years later, this man's family is still reeling in his passing. They are still fractured. They're still damaged. They're still hurting. It's very, very obvious. And something like that, I don't think you can. You could tell somebody until you're blue in the face, one day at a time, blah this, blah that, but easier said than done. It's easier said than done, but very powerful. I gotta say to Evan and Jason and them, they did pretty damn good. They did pretty damn good with this season premiere. I gotta say, very strong. I just love the fact, just everybody that they had involved in this and everything. I thought it was, I thought they got it off on the right start and everything. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the rest of these episodes that's going to be coming up for Dark Side of the Ring. And just in case you guys had missed it, with regards to season 3, here's the episodes that they're going to be covering. Hang on here. So I actually have the list right here. Here we go. And I'll read this off to you guys real quick here. All right, so we already got Brian Pillman, part 1 and 2. Next up, we're going to see, which is on next Thursday, we're going to see the ultra violence of Nick Gage. Episode after that, it's going to be the collision in Korea. Looking forward to that. That should be a pretty damn good episode. Also, the Ultimate Warrior. What more new are we going to learn about the Ultimate Warrior? I can't help but wonder. I will say this. If you guys had enjoyed the Brian Pillman special tonight for Dark Side of the Ring, there's a DVD that I do recommend you guys check out. I actually still have it in my collection, and it's called Brian Pillman Loose Cannon. There's a documentary part in it, not as good as what the Dark Side of the Ring crew had did and everything. But what really makes the DVD, pretty cool is you got a nice collection there of matches. So I definitely will recommend you go out of your way and you check that out if you are maybe feeling a little bit nostalgic. You want to go down, memory lane and all that. If you want to hear about some of the matches real quick, because this was a DVD that came out in 2019. So I'm not sure how many of you guys, if you had missed it or whatnot, but it came out in 2019. And this was kind of at a period almost where up until that point, like once you start getting to about 2017, 18, WWE was getting more scarce with their DVD releases and everything. So it was a 2-disc set. And as far as the matches go, so you get the Bad Company interview, Calgary Stampede Wrestling from 1988, Pillman's Triple X Files, The Gun Incident, Raw, November 4th, 1996, International Tag Team Championship match, Bad Company versus the Midnight Cowboys from 1988, Calgary Stampede Wrestling. NWA United States Championship match, Brian Pillman taking on Lex Luger, NWA Halloween Havoc of 1989. NWA United States Tag Team Championship Tournament, Brian Pillman and Tom Zink take on the Fabulous Freebirds, WCW February of 1990. Then on disc 2, check this out, Sting, Brian Pillman, and the Steiners versus the Four Horsemen from 1991. WCW Wrestle War. WCW Light Heavyweight Championship match, Brian Pillman versus Richard Morton, Halloween Havoc 1991. Loser Leaves Town, Brian Pillman and El Hunte versus Barry Windham and Arn Anderson. Clash of Champions 15, 1991. Brian Pillman and Barry Windham versus Johnny Gunn and Tom Zink, WCW Saturday Night 1992. Steel cage match for the NWA WCW Tag Team titles, Hollywood Blondes versus Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas, Slamboree 1993. Thunder cage match, Sting, Brian Pillman, and Dusty Rhodes versus Paul Orndorff, Steve Austin, and Rick Rude. Super Brawl 4, 1994. Brian Pillman versus Jushin Thunder Liger, WCW Nitro of 1995. Brian Pillman versus Dean Malenko, Nitro, 1996. Brian Pillman versus Eddie Guerrero, Clash of Champions 32, January of 1996. Brian Pillman versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, Raw, from 1997. 10-man tag match. Now, this part, I wish they would have spent just a couple of minutes talking about, because I appreciate the fact that they brought things kind of full circle with Steve Austin and Brian Pillman and WWF and doing the whole infamous gun incident and everything. But for me, as a wrestling fan and as a big Brian Pillman fan, one of the best memories I have from his time in WWF was when he was running around with the Heart Foundation. How do we not bring that up during this special? I mean, we talked about how he got his training and everything, but come on. But anyway, 10-man tag team match. Something that they do talk about, his time in the Heart Foundation in WWF. They do actually talk about that a little bit on the DVD. They do show it some love. But there was a 10-man tag match, Heart Foundation, including Brian Pillman, taking on Stone Cold Steve Austin, Ken Shamrock, Goldust, and the Legion of Doom. In Your House, Canadian Stampede, 1997. Two more matches, Brian Pillman versus Goldust, In Your House, Ground Zero, 1997. And WCW Light Heavyweight Championship match, Brian Pillman versus Jushin Thunder Liger, WCW Super Brawl 2. That is from February 22nd, 1992. Good luck if you're able to find that floating around, because some of these DVDs, especially, now that we're in this day and age where streaming online exclusively only, now some of these DVDs are kind of hard to find on Amazon, eBay, and all that. And if you are able to find them, motherfuckers want ridiculous amounts of money for them. But check that out if you haven't checked it out. I promise you'll definitely like it. Let's see, getting to the rest of the episodes for this season of Dark Side of the Ring. As I said, Ultimate Warrior, kind of interesting to see where we go from there. Grizzly Smith, Dynamite Kid, the WWF steroid trial. I'm actually looking forward to that one. That's kind of like a tell me something I don't know. I remember doing a lot of research back in the day, looking that up, kind of following it and everything. So it's going to be nice to kind of not only get a refresher, but just see how much gets covered on that one. I mean, that's honestly enough for a 2-part episode, but they're probably going to cram it all into one. Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling, Luna Vachon, The Plane Ride from Hell, XPW, Johnny K9, Bruiser Bedlam, and Chris Canyon. So it should be a pretty damn good season that they got coming up. I'm actually looking forward to it. Should be some good shit. Let's see what some of you guys are saying in the chat here. By the way, shout out to Oscar. Appreciate the super chat. Let's see what we got here. Oscar said, I am worried this season will be a letdown. China is already slated for next season, but some of these episodes don't entice people. I'm lost on No Mike Awesome episode. That would be epic. I think my buddy Julian Cannon from Wrestling Court, if I remember correctly, They were filming the Mike Awesome episode. They wanted to try to include it in this season, but given what they already had, they decided, okay, we're going to go ahead and actually forward the Mike Awesome episode to the fourth season. Yeah, I know, like originally, yeah, we heard that it was supposed to be the China episode too, but yeah, the China one, Mike Awesome, those have been pushed to the fourth season. For me personally, definitely the steroid trial is going to be. I think most fans will definitely, especially the newer generation that don't know anything about the steroid trials, they're going to find that very fascinating. And then even on their own, they're going to want to do research about that. Luna Vachon, that's going to be a pretty damn good one. One of the most underrated women, like fucking hands down. Luna Vachon, I mean, she's one of those women, man. And I still just don't understand this for the love of me. This is somebody that should be in the WWE, as far as like bringing up, like, this woman did this woman. Yeah, she really doesn't get enough recognition, I feel. And that's despite the fact that she was in the Hall of Fame class of 2019 and everything. But so underrated, so goddamn underrated. I think that's going to be a pretty good episode that folks are going to be looking forward to. The plane ride from hell, that's definitely going to be pretty damn good. XPW, I think, is a very interesting choice. And I only know just a little bit here and there from over the years about XPW. But that should be pretty good to check out. Chris Canyon for sure. Who better than Canyon? I was a big Chris Canyon fan, so I'm actually looking forward to that one. Dynamite Kid, you can't fuck with Dynamite Kid. I mean, Dynamite Kid, hands down, that should be pretty damn good. The Frontier martial arts wrestling promotion, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm a little bit on the dark about that one. I'm actually going to do some research leading up to when they get ready to show that episode, FMW. But, I'm a little in the dark on that one. So I'm looking forward to seeing why this one was selected and everything. That should be a pretty good one. I would not be surprised since this is very, because their headquarters was in Japan and all that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they relied heavily on Dave Meltzer for this one, given his appreciation for Japanese wrestling and everything. He shows a lot of love to New Japan Pro Wrestling and all that. That should be a pretty good episode. So I'm looking forward to that. I can kind of see your point. There's a couple episodes where you're kind of scratching your head and you're kind of going, I wouldn't say weak, but just why this episode, it's I'll give them a lot of credit. It's a little bit of let's do something kind of new that most people don't know about, and let's kind of sprinkle it in with a couple of guys that some people know about, or hey, this story really hasn't been told, as like that. Let's really put this on a grander scale and, update it. And, so for example, Dynamite Kid, I love Dynamite Kid, by the way. I got a DVD of his joint sitting in my collection. I think it's about 8 hours of him doing his fucking thing. Good shit. So we'll see. Let's see. What else you guys saying in the chat here? Joshua, I cried like I did with the Owen Hart episode. Yeah, that Owen Hart episode was definitely... See, it's interesting because you cried for the Owen Hart. I actually cried during the Benoit joint. I was just kind of taken back all over again to when I first found out the news about Benoit being dead. I remember watching that infamous Raw Chris Benoit tribute episode. Vince McMahon standing in the middle of the ring talking about how they were supposed to be surrounded by a boatload of fans. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this had came the week after the Vince McMahon limousine explosion. Remember? And I think that came at a time where Vince McMahon was giving away his own money on a weekly basis. He was calling up random people and shit, that some like, I don't know, lottery thing or whatever, and that's pretty much how he was doing it. And yeah, I remember it kind of got to a point where I guess Vince McMahon was getting a little sick and tired of coughing up his money, and so he wanted to try to figure out a way to stop giving away his money and be off TV for a little bit. And so they decided to go with that whole limo explosion incident. And yeah, during the course of his absence and everything, we learned about what went down with Benoit, and you're like, eesh, rough, man, rough. Let's see, and that's pretty much it. Daniel is saying he wants to learn more about Warrior. Well, I tell you what, for you and everybody else, if you were fortunate enough and you did not watch the Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior DVD that was released by WWE some years back, which was just pretty much a fucking smear campaign. I mean, that was one of the worst WWE DVDs of all time that was ever produced. I mean, you know, you couldn't even look at that. You couldn't even look at that. The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior. That was the name of it. You could not even look at that and say, oh, they're roasting Ultimate Warrior. You couldn't even say that. It was downright fucking bad. It was embarrassing. They kind of redeemed themselves a little bit when they did the Ultimate Warrior, the Ultimate DVD collection, where that pretty much was just nothing but matches. It had about over 7 hours worth of matches. I have that DVD too. The Self-Destruction one, I actually have that one. I gotta dig around. I gotta dig around a little bit, but I'm pretty sure I still got that floating around somewhere. But for anybody that did not check out the Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, stay away from it. That's my number one. You know, I normally will recommend you guys check this out. That's the one DVD, especially if you're a Warrior fan, you don't want to watch it, because by the time you get done watching it, you'll be extremely pissed off, and you're gonna be like, why was this even put out? Like, seriously, why was this released? This is nothing but a smear campaign. They're just bashing this guy for the entire 90 minutes, 2 hours. Like, what the fuck? So don't watch that one. You'll trust me, you'll thank me later. I'm not over exaggerating. So the Warrior one, this go around, now that it's getting the dark side treatment, that should be pretty damn good. All right, so hey man, that's it. We're gonna be continuing to review more episodes of Dark Side of the Ring, but it's not gonna be as lengthy. This was a nice deluxe season premiere that they gave us, so it's the only reason why we've been on for as long as we have. And plus, I was, addressing some of your questions, comments, and all that. So I'm glad we were able to do this. So yeah, like, we're going to be doing this for the remainder of season 3 for Dark Side of the Ring. Thursday nights. What is it? I guess at this point they'll go off at 10 p.m. Eastern. I'll be right here. I'll be giving my thoughts about Dark Side of the Ring and everything. You guys appreciate it. Please, as you get ready to make your exit, if you haven't done so already, please make sure you hit the like. Hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on all future content. Click on the bell. Hit all notifications so you know every single time something's getting ready to come your way. You can get at me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Use the keywords, the RCWR Show. Programming note. Patreon members, patreon.com/RCWR Show. You guys are going to be getting some new content. We're going to be dropping a new Wrestling with the Topics for you guys, so tune in for that. Other than that, we will see you for our free-for-all edition of the RCWR Show next up on Monday, May 10th. We'll be on after Raw goes off the air. We'll get into the latest in wrestling headlines and beyond. Get at me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Use the keywords, the RCWR Show. And until next go around, I'm wishing all of you all to be safe. And be kind to one another. Unless you have other plans, please enjoy your weekend. Okay. Peace out, y'all. Take care.